Welcome to essentially what is the conclusion of our budget hearings. Next week we will have our regularly scheduled April meeting where we will vote on the budget. This evening we'll walk through some of the adjustments that the Board of Selectmen did to the budget. We will ask about any new information. We'll ask some follow-up items for a couple of departments are here, and then we'll move it on down the road. We appreciate everybody's help. Before we get started tonight, we'll do our Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to ask everybody to remain standing and turn it over to Mr. Walsh for a brief personal comment. We're going to go to Mrs. Linda Gardner, our Budget Director for the town, and ask her to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Walsh.
Last Saturday, less than a month after losing my dear friend and our dear friend, Judge Caruso, we had another loss in this town, and that was by Father John Barron, who's the pastor of St. Anthony's Roman Catholic Church here in South Pine Creek Road. I'm a member of that parish, and I think we needed to say something because Father John was a friend to this town. He was a friend to the entire area. He was a friend, really good friend actually, with Dan Caruso. So the fact that we've lost these two humble giants in less than 30 days is shocking, and it's going to be something this town has to deal with. Father John was a unbelievably gifted homilist, orator, to the highest degree that I've never seen anybody else ever do. But he also had a humble way about him, and he was an unbelievable leader in regards to not only the parish but the town. He did many masses for our police department. He did many masses for the fire department. He counseled people of all faiths around town, and it's going to be a substantial loss to all the people that he inspired and all the people that were his followers and the town in general. So I'd just like to take a moment of silence on behalf of Father John. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Before I start the meeting, does any questions, comments, concerns, any issues from any board members at this point? Seeing none, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to ask him to walk us through the adjustments that the Board of Selectmen did just the other day to the budget. My understanding at the bottom line of the budget was changed minimally, but there were some, I guess what I would say, administrative changes to the budget due to better available information. So, Mr. Mayor, could you step us through the adjustments that were made?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was emailed, but we have copies.
We have some hard copies. Can we pass them out? Thank you. And you don't have to go through them ad nauseum, Mr. Mayor. Just step us through.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. There's 2 pages. First page is the town. The second page is WPCA. All of these entries are a result of bids received. That's the insurance. Updated information. That's the liability. Excuse me. There's 3 insurances on here actually. There's the long-term disability and life insurance. Those changes are a result of the final bids received. There's the health insurance for the town, which is a positive $90,000 because of the up-to-date information on from the initial budget. There's a negative on the workers' comp of $106,000. As I looked at the activity year to date and carried that forward and did kind of a semi-development for next year, it looked like we need another $106,000 there. There's the Board of Ed budget had 2 entries. The numbers from Hooker and Holcomb, the actuaries for the pension, 62,000 less than was in the initial budget, and based upon the bus contract that was finalized since the initial budget, sounds $190,000 savings there. The big negative is in the recyclables, where we are losing $60,000 in revenue rebates, and we are losing 150,000, excuse me, 210,000 in pros fees and professional services. Extra expenses, not losing revenue, but increasing the expense of 210,000 contracted property services and fees and professional services. IT software, $75,000. We renegotiated our licensing agreements, and it came out much more favorably than we anticipated. And that's kind of the big ones. And I'll give one other one, the Penfield rental. There was some discussion about that, if you remember.
Yes.
The rentals, successful rentals during the off-season there wasn't a lot of off-season rentals because they didn't have seasonal pricing, so they incorporated, developed seasonal pricing formulas and matrix, and anticipate as a result of that additional $55,000 in rental fees during the off-season, during the off-peak season. And the health insurance and the workers' comp carry over into WPCA. That's kind of the bulk of it.
Is there any questions from board members on the adjustments made by the Board of Selectmen? It sounds like it was all based on additional information, better information.
Correct, exactly.
Mr. DeWitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All these seem to make sense to me, with one exception, is that I specifically asked the town clerk this year about the conveyance tax and the revenue that she was bringing in. Last year, we bumped up their conveyance, her revenue, and the whole year she was reporting, I'm never going to make the conveyance total. And now I see that the Board of Selectmen took her up $20,000. So I'm curious how that came about.
When we got done with all the adjustments, the original budget was 2.48 increase. When we got all done with it, it was 2.52 increase. The first selectman, since given the closeness of the numbers, if that's the correct word, went around asking people if there was other savings or other revenue, and the town clerk came up with $20,000.
So this is the town clerk's revised estimate?
Correct.
And I guess that's because the revenue has to equal the expenditures to have a balanced sheet here, right?
Right. Yeah, and basically the current budget balanced with the collection rate is 98.74. It's 98.71.
Right. I mean, her 3-year average is just about 20,000 higher than what is in her budget this year for revenue.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of okay with it, except for the fact that I specifically asked her this question. She's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the number. I really didn't want to go any higher.
The
So.
administration put a little extra pressure on her. I mean, she
I
was,
understand you gotta
but
put-
it's her number. I mean, it's not. We would not put a number in here that she would not bless.
Right. Without that 20,000, though, you're quite unbalanced, since the revenue number is only 19,000, right? So I get it.
Yeah.
I appreciate the
Yeah,
data. Thank you.
and 98.73 was the correct number. It's not my original 98.73.
Thank you. Any other questions on these items?
I
Mr. Walsh?
just find it odd that we're starting to use conveyance tax as plug numbers. I mean, it's just, if you're $19,000 off, I mean, we should just be cutting something. I mean, we shouldn't be just like raising revenue numbers willy-nilly just to make plug numbers. It's just not a good process to really get into.
I wasn't involved in the discussions, and I know that I just know what happened.
Okay. Other questions from board members? All right, seeing none, let's go to WPCA real quick and check that out. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, the sewer use fees, going back to the word plug, the sewer use fees is a plug. They balance their budget with their use fees. So the revenue is increased by $9,399 because they try to operate at break even or a planned surplus. There's no planned surplus in this budget. So the increase of the workers' comp and the health insurance active, the two unfavorabilities there required an increase in revenue for them to balance their budget. So they try to get that out of sewer use fees.
Questions on WPCA and the adjustments made by the Board of Selectmen on those numbers? All right, seeing none. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to go back to you and ask, since we last discussed the budget and since the Board of Selectmen voted, is there any better available information of which we should be aware as we go to make the vote next Tuesday evening?
No, at this point, the only information that should change between now and the RTM, or that's likely to change, potentially change, is the health insurance. We'll be able to add another month of experience, but that won't be available until the middle of April.
So the best available information on that
Is
is
in this.
already baked into what the Board of Selectmen voted on?
Yes, sir.
And no better estimates for any of the boards or commissions related to revenue?
We have the two here that is indicated, the Penfield that was changed.
Right, I'm asking after the Board of Selectmen. Okay. Nothing from any of the boards and commissions relative to expenses or other plans after the Board of Selectmen had?
Nothing, correct, sir.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, any potential changes or concerns with the budget? All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay.
One quick thing. The BAA finished their deliberations, so we'll be incorporating the results of the BAA adjustments in the
In the calculation.
in the
of the mill rate.
calculation
Okay.
for the mill rate, but not for budgeted.
Please make sure that the RTM's aware of that when they vote as well.
Right, thank you.
All right.
Will do.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Leclerc.
Do you know the results? Did it go up or down, or how much?
Well, it's always down, but no, I didn't have a chance to meet with them. They just ended last night, and I didn't have a chance to get together with them today.
If you can give us any information on that Tuesday, just so that we have a heads up directionally.
Will do.
Not that it's going down, but that it's, how much it's going down
Exactly right.
appropriately would be good. All right, anybody else? All right, seeing none, we had some follow-up items that we were going to go through this evening. We're going to start quickly with DPW. We had, I believe, some questions for them, so why don't you guys come on up? And thank you to the department heads and the people that came this evening. We might have to, yeah. Okay, Mr. Michelangelo, go right ahead. Hello.
Good evening.
And we hope Mr. Bartlett is feeling better.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay. So follow-up items, you just want me to present? some
Yeah,
items?
please.
Okay. One of the first questions was the updated recycling expense and revenue, which Mr. Bowman has the information on.
Well, we kind of, and it's already baked into the budget,
Okay,
right?
yep. Okay.
And it's not too different than what you had actually led us to
Actually, we
believe.
got draft contract. It is exactly what we thought it was, so.
Right. Does anybody have any questions on that? It's essentially what we spoke about that evening, but it's now baked into the budget.
It's reflected in the Board of Selectmen sheet.
Okay.
Okay.
The 210 and then the loss at the top, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Mr. Michelangelo.
Another item which was transmitted to the Board of Finance was the utility transfer, the new accounts that are set up for the Park Rec accounts and the Fire Training Center.
Questions on those by anyone? We did get documents on those in packages previously enough. Go ahead.
We also prepared some information as far as the question. The question was that our contracted services were going up over the last 4 years, so there was asked to show a analysis of how those increases in contracted services are reflected in other accounts, and we did that in a transmittal that showed about 4 or 5 different line items.
We did get that. Do you happen to have copies of that here and available tonight? Or not?
I have one copy.
Can we maybe just get copies of that so we can discuss that? And I think, weren't we potentially going into executive session to talk about a couple of things on that issue, correct?
Correct. There was the org chart distributed also, so if there are specific questions on that, I think it is best to not do it in public session.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll talk about that in a couple minutes. Let's put that to the side. We'll need copies, and we will go into private executive session if the board so chooses. But go ahead. Do you have other items?
There was a staffing history which goes along with the
Yep.
with the labor thing. There was some WPCA questions which were also transmitted on Flow. There was the cost of the nor'easter storms, which was transmitted also.
Do we have any questions on WPCA costs that were transmitted to us? Are we good with the follow-ups on those items? And how about the information on the storms? These were all done via email on follow-ups. Okay, Mr. Brown.
Just going back to the payroll, the 4 items, Joe, just a general question. Your number here, $4,808,000, that's what's in the budget book as well, and that's what's on your document number 24 for regular payroll? And that's what you're saying is budgeted for fiscal year 19, correct?
Correct.
So my question is contracts. Maybe it's to Mr. Mayor. Do we have contracts that are going to settle that budget year, the upcoming budget year? For
I
DPW?
apologize, which
Okay,
union
so on the
contracts?
yeah, contracts for DPW. This
Contract for DPW has been, has been completed, and negotiations been completed, and the HR department and the union are drawing up the final settlement, and I'm not sure when it's, I think Mr. Hibson is here. That's going to go for May, RTM? Yeah. gonna be-
They're reflected in this number, though?
Yes, yeah, it's in the,
It's in the budget.
it's in the part of the contingency that has the labor costs, it's in there at the exact amount of the contract.
Okay, but it's not reflected in the DPW line item for payroll.
That is a correct statement.
Okay. All right. So we'll take that up in executive session, too. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Michelangelo, was there any other items?
There were some questions also on the utilities, which Mr. Bowman prepared a document and also forwarded.
We did receive, I believe, that document. And does anybody have any follow-up items on the utilities? This is the transfer of utilities from your department to the other departments to get it
Correct.
more correctly reported. Is that a fair statement?
And it was just some trends basically for
Yeah.
the last 4 or 5 years.
Anybody have anything on that? Seeing none, can I have a motion to go into private executive session? Mr. Mattola, do I have a second? Mr. DeWitt? All in favor of going to private executive session? Opposed? Abstentions? We're going to go out back for a little bit and just talk about personnel matters related to DPW, and then we'll be right back out here.
And Mr. Hibson's going to join us also.
Please, thank you. And we'll get this over with and come right back out. Thanks, everybody. We look forward to the follow-up items on those. Moving back into, I'm going to make a motion to, I'm asking for a motion to move us back into public session. We're going to take Ms. Zesma. Do we have a second? We're going to go with Mr. DeWitt. All in favor of being back in public session? Those opposed? We're back in public session. Welcome. The Board of Education is here. So thank you for being here, and come on up, and we'll do your follow-up items this evening. Appreciate it. Let me ask, nobody else had anything else for DPW, correct? Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming back tonight. Appreciate it.
And unlike the last 3 meetings, you don't have to make a decision about school tomorrow.
No, awesome. Love that. Oh, good. Oh.
That's not gonna fix it.
What is it?
That's right. Okay,
There's like 2 more. Oh, they're coming from the other end.
great. All right.
Same thing? Oh, okay.
That makes more sense.
Let's go, so we'll turn it over to you guys. Thank you for being here.
Here you go.
So we had a few follow-up items, but go right ahead. We'll jump on into it, just like we did with DPW.
So I think the follow-up item that came out of your last meeting is the difference of the number that Aon gave us in December in terms of what we think we saved, and the number that they gave you in March as to what the revised number is, what we saved. And I think that was, you might have other questions, but I think that's the principal one that brought us back.
We can absolutely start with that. Go right ahead.
And some, as I recall, were not at the meeting, and I don't know whether Mr. Mayor wants to make any introductory comments or whether we just go into it.
There was confusion, I guess, about, there was 2 numbers that were presented. One that was presented to the Board of Ed, $5 million. One that was presented to the town. There was a $2.5 million, and there was an issue about the reconciliation and the difference in those numbers and how they originated. And I think that's what the Board of Ed would like to clear up.
Okay, yeah, so, and I'm happy personally to be here to clear that up, and quite frankly, if I was sitting on your side of the table and I got within 3 months 2 different numbers, I'd ask a question too. Now, I'm a retired YMCA director, and I don't talk the same way that Mr. Walsh does as an attorney, and so we use different language, but I think that both of us are asking the same question.
Okay.
And what is the difference? And so that's why we're here. I want to assure you that the Board of Ed relied on information that was available to us in December and presented the $5 million figure. There was no effort on our part or the staff's part to mislead the Board of Finance or to present a wrong number.
Right.
We relied on the information that we had from last December, and nor did Aon. All through the budget season, we consistently use the phrase, what's the best available information? And between October, November, when we start putting information together, and in March, when the Board of Finance looks at it, and even in May, when the RTM looks at it, each time there's new information, you deal with the new set of facts. And I think that's what's going on here. I want to also say that the Board of Education or the staff did not tell Aon this is the number we want to hit. We simply asked the question at the shortly after the state sent a revised claims experience to us on Partnership 2.0. A couple of days later, Mrs. Munn